Jones Loflin, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to share some of my book writing journey, Aaron. Love the opportunity to connect with the book community in this way. So looking forward to our time together.
As a keynote speaker and business coach, what types of coaching services do you provide, and what subjects or topics have you given keynote speeches about?
Sure. We'll start with the coaching. In coaching, normally my clients are usually mid-level managers or higher in an organization. Usually they are coming to me because they are feeling a little burned out or feeling stressed with all the expectations they have on them with their time. The other reason they would come to me is to grow their leadership, to take their leadership to the next level. So that would be the second reason. Interestingly enough, that's also why people come to me for keynote presentations, is how to manage that struggle of too much to do, how to stay focused in a world that's so distracting, or to improve their ability to lead people. Those are really the three areas that I find myself most often coaching or speaking on.
You've written 5 nonfiction books, but I'll start with one of the books you co-wrote, and that is Focused as a Bee, and you co-wrote that with Sydney, which I'm not sure if that's your daughter or your niece or...
It's my daughter, absolutely.
It is your daughter. Oh, Sydney is your daughter. Okay. Without spoiling too much about Focused as a Bee, what is that book about, and what was it like to co-author a book with your daughter?
Sure. Let's start with the second question first. Let's start with writing with my daughter. When you take someone who's in their late 50s and partner them with someone who's in their early 20s, you learn very quickly that your writing and desired reading styles are very different. And so when we started writing the book, we realized very early that one of us would need to take the lead. And because I had written books before, I would take the lead. Sydney would add the story, the nuances, well, Dad, I think it ought to be explained this way type of thing. So that was what worked well, is to have that delineation of expectations. The second thing was, it was pure joy to work with your daughter. I've talked to lots of dads and moms since the book came out in January, and they say, oh, I would love to do something like that with my son or my daughter, because it is such an intense experience of working together, of working through conflict and different expectations. And then when you see that finished product that the two of you did, it really is just one of my life's greatest achievements that I'm so proud of.
Regarding Focused as a Bee, what is that book about?
Sure. Focused as a Bee is all about how to retain your focus in a world that's so distracting, in a workplace that is always pulling at us from so many different directions. So in the book, we give you 6 permissions that we have learned based on the world of honeybees and beekeeping to help you to maintain that level of focus. And focus is the intentional direction of your time and energy toward what matters most. And so how do you do that? And so we give people practical tools in the book through story to help them to be able to focus on what's most important so that they can accomplish their goals, their highest priorities in work and life.
You use honeybees and beekeeping as a metaphor in Focused as a Bee. What is one lesson from bees that humans can learn to deal with struggling with distractions?
Sure. I think one of the, just one quick one is, in honeybees, in the hive, every bee has one job in the moment. They have one job based on their age or where the development of the hive. They have one job to do. It might be to go forage pollen and nectar, or it might be to build honeycomb, or it might be to take care of the baby bees. But they all have one job that they do until it's done by, now I'm older, or the needs of the hive have changed, but they don't switch jobs jobs back and forth. If you think about most of us in our work days and our lives, we're constantly jumping from one thing to another. We don't finish what we start. We might start doing something, but then we do something else. I mean, in the hive, it would be like a bee saying, you know what, I think I'm going to make some wax today. And about 10 minutes in, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to head outside and go forage some pollen and nectar. And, oh, you know what, I'd like to go check on the baby bees. Is it any wonder why we don't get things done? Because we're constantly moving from one thing to another. So I think from beekeeping or honeybees, I think if people could simply ask themselves, what's the one job that's most important for me to complete right now? That one idea alone can help people get more done and get the right things done each day.
In a world full of notifications, meetings, endless to-do lists, and constant online connectivity, how can we create an environment that supports focus?
Right. I think and certainly notifications and things are part of the reason we can't focus. I think when we talk about staying focused, I think there's three distractions we have to be aware of. One of them is the most obvious, the most obvious one you mentioned, which is notifications, the external environment around us. It's moving that phone further away from us. It's turning off notifications. It's physically moving our bodies to a different location to try and focus instead of being in an environment where there's lots of distractions. So I think that's the first one, is our external environment. A second one is the internal noise. What's the conversation going on in our head? If we're thinking about 15 different things, instead of the one in front of us, we're not going to be able to focus. And so I think we have to figure out, how do we calm down that internal noise? And some ways we do that are we do a brain dump. We start writing down those other things that we're thinking about so that our mind will say, okay, you've got those written down, so I'm going to leave you alone, let you focus on this one thing. The other thing I think is important is expectations of others. That's a huge distraction for many people, is they feel like they have to always be available to others around them. And so they're not available for their own, work or their own things that they need to focus on. So I think when we look at it, that's really the three. It's the external environment. It's also the noise in our head, and it's also the expectations of others and managing them.
How can business leaders and teams cultivate a culture of focus in the workplace when everyone is constantly being pulled in different directions?
Wow. How much time do we have? 3 hours, Aaron?
No.
I know. But I mean, there's just so much. And because I was with a group last week and they were talking about, some of these same things. And I think one of the first things to do is that we have to give people permission to focus. We have to, as leaders, as managers, as teams, we have to determine, what do we need to focus? And sometimes that's no meetings Friday, or, 15 minutes between meetings on our calendar instead of moving right out of one meeting into another. I think we have to work on being able to turn off Teams notifications or shut down our email in those moments when we really need to work on something and not be distracted. And to train our team members, hey, if you don't get a response from me in 10 minutes, that doesn't mean I'm dead. It means that I'm working on something, and I'll get back to you within 30 minutes or an hour. And if you need to reach me more quickly, then call me, because when I see a phone call from you, I'm going, oh, wow, this must be important. So I think it's all about establishing those guidelines, those routines, those norms that give people the ability to focus instead of us just expecting that focus is going to happen.
I'm going to pivot to the other 4 books you've written or co-written for the next couple of questions.
Okay.
2 books that you've co-authored are Juggling Elephants and Getting to It. Without spoiling too much about those 2 books, what are each of them about, and who were the co-authors for each of those books?
Sure. The co-author for each of those books is Todd Musig, just a fantastic friend of mine. He lives in Utah. Todd and I met when we were both working for the company Who Moved My Cheese, a book about dealing with change. And of course, that's where we began to see the power of story, of narrative, of metaphor. Getting to it is all about getting to your most important things. We call it a field guide to getting to those things that are most important. It's very practically written. And so the book is all about the it's. How do I plan for it? How do I, set a goal for it? And it being those important things. Juggling Elephants is about what to do about too much to do. In fact, if I were to ask your listeners, I'd say in your drive to get it all done, what's not getting done or not getting done well, they'd start listing off several things. And the reason we're not getting to those things is because we think we can juggle elephants. We think we can get it all done. So in the book, Todd and I give a model to better manage your time using the example of a successful circus. You're the ringmaster of your circus. That means you're in control of your time. You're not in control of everything, but how are you using that time you're in control of? You have 3 rings. The listeners can go buy the book to find out what those 3 rings are. But you need to work with your performers effectively. You need to take intermissions from time to time to renew your energy. So that book is all about how to manage the struggle of too much to do using the metaphor of a successful circus.
The 2 books that you're the solo author of are Always Growing and Getting the Blue Ribbon. And the latter of those is not about a certain beer brand with the word blue ribbon in it. Without spoiling too much about those 2 books, what are each of them about?
Sure. Getting the Blue Ribbon, it's fun. I'm glad you asked. Getting the Blue Ribbon is about leading change. And I now call it Always Growing 1.0, because when I wrote the book, I was proud of the book. I don't feel like it was written as well as it should. And this is a great tip for those who are listening, who are aspiring book authors, is being willing to say, time out. While I thought I had it right, I'm just not so sure. So Always Growing is a rewrite of Getting the Blue Ribbon with some things changed. I think there's probably 40% of the content has changed in the book, but it is an improvement. It's 2.0, if you will. So Always Growing is about how to lead with a gardener's mindset. How do you grow yourself and your team so you can grow your business or your department? What does cultivation look like for you? How do you consistently grow yourself and your team? Pruning is all about where do I need to cut back so I can grow forward in what I'm doing. And Harvest is about celebrating progress. And so it's a model that someone can use to gauge how effectively they are leading and what steps they can take to lead more effectively using the principles of successful gardening or farming. I was with a group last week and we used farming instead of gardening as the analogy.
What motivates you to write personal development books?
I would say the number one thing that motivates me is because of how I have been impacted by personal growth books, namely the one that really just rocked my career and really put me on the path to where I am today was that book I mentioned, Who Moved My Cheese. In 2000, someone gave me a copy and said, hey, I heard the author speak today. I know you speak on time management and those things. You might like this book. Read it in an hour, Aaron, sat down, just finished it cover to cover and went, wow. I know how I'm looking at change and how I need to change if I want to be successful in my future. And so when I realized I got that much impact from a book that I read in an hour, it led me to say when I reached a point in my career when I was ready, I wanted to attempt to write books in a similar way. I like the books written in this way because I don't have to be the expert. I need to be the expert on gardening or the circus or beekeeping, but I don't have to be the expert on your situation. I'm going to give you a framework and a model where you're going to enjoy a story and go, oh, okay, I'm learning something here. And that, okay, based on what I see happening in the story, what do I need to do in my situation to grow, to improve, to change, to lead more effectively? So that's my own experience, very simply, is what got me started wanting to write books like this.
What are the easiest and hardest aspects of writing nonfiction books for you?
The easiest for me is letting them grow out of my own experiences, where I'm coming from. That's probably the easiest side of things because Dr. Spencer Johnson, who wrote Who Moved My Cheese, said to Todd and I one time, we were having dinner with him, and he said, never write a book you haven't lived. And so that's always stuck with me that it's easy to write a book that you've lived. It's hard to write a book that you say, hey, this book's going to help other people if you haven't lived it yourself. And so any of the principles that you see in my books are ones that I have lived out, learned from other people, experienced in some way before they became ideas in my books. The hardest part is keeping the story engaging and making sure it's business relevant. All of my books I consider to be helpful in the business realm as well as outside. But the hardest part is making sure that the books have business relevance and keeping the length to the right length, if you will, because if it's too long, people go, oh, I'm not going to read it. If it's too short, they go, oh, I didn't get enough from it. And I want people to be able to close that book and go, okay, I know how I can improve my workday. I can improve my personal life. I can improve how I'm leading or managing without taking more time from them reading the book than's necessary.
Are all of your books independently published, traditionally published, or hybrid published, or did you use different publishing methods for your books?
We have used different, I say we because some of my books I've co-authored. We have used different publishing methods. Juggling Elephants and Getting to It were legacy publishing through the publishers there, the more traditional, or excuse me, not traditional these days, but past, I guess, traditional path of you get an agent, that agent takes your manuscript to a publisher, to an editor, and they say, yes, we want this book. My other books have been done self-published, and that is by choice because I've been able to control more of the distribution, the content, and even from a price point, because I'm a keynote speaker, I've been able to offer those books to my clients at a lower price because the books are printed and then sent directly to my company, and then we're able to sell them to those clients at a reduced price. So that's the path that we've taken. And is there a right one or a wrong one? No, you find the one that works best for you for what your goals are with the book. One of the reasons I like self-publishing, especially in a book like Focused as a Bee, is that I get direct contact with those who are purchasing the book. And I don't if they're buying it from Amazon or if they're doing Audible or some of the other formats it's available. But if they order the book from our website, then I get the opportunity to find out how they're using it, how, what other services or resources we could provide to them after they've bought the book. So it helps me develop stronger relationships with those who are reading the material.
You have your own YouTube channel, and what types of videos do you post to that?
Sure. The first thing that's posted there is the thing that updates most frequently are what I call my weekly Jones Zones. And about every week, I produce a 3-minute or less video on how to have a better week. It's where I share a tip or an idea or a strategy that will help people make better use of their time, to lead more effectively, to focus. And so it's something I've been doing for, gosh, I don't know how many years. I know there's over 500 videos at my YouTube channel that are in the Jones Zone, we call it. And so that's one of the things they'll find. The other thing is they'll find keynote excerpts. A lot of meeting planners, those who are planning conferences and events, use my YouTube channel to evaluate my speaking and also to send it out to other people who might be on a committee or a group to determine if they want to use me for their conference or event. So that would be the second thing. And then we actually do have some background videos on different things, whether it be Juggling Elephants or Focused as a Bee, where we kind of let people see how the process works in writing a book or creating a keynote or developing other content.
I'm going to pivot back to focused as a bee for my final question. If someone listening to this podcast episode feels overwhelmed and scattered, what is the first small step that he or she can take right now to improve his or her focus?
I love that question, Aaron. And there's so much that's going through my mind right now. And say that the first thing is to, I think you even said it in the question, is to stop. It's hard to make a course correction when you are constantly moving, when you're busy, which implies activity but not accomplishment. I would encourage that individual or any individual who's feeling distracted and just really scattered to stop and say, what do I want? What's important to me in my work and life? We talk about honeybees being focused. Every action they take is focused on their desired outcome. I encourage individuals to sometimes stop and say, okay, what are the outcomes I want from work, from relationships, from life, and how am I doing on those? And you can even rate yourself. In coaching, sometimes I'll have my participants or clients to rate themselves. Say, okay, how are things at work? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself on aligning your daily activities with the outcomes you want for work? Let's do the same for relationships. Let's do the same for your personal wellness. And from there, you can say, okay, I got a 3 on personal wellness. And then what would you do to make it a 4? What could you do to make it a 5? What would that look like? And getting very tangible with your actions. You ask about a simple action. I think that's where it starts. I think the second thing is to have a conversation with someone who you feel like will listen and has your best interest at heart, and will listen to you talk about how you're feeling, what your frustrations are, and ask you really good questions. I have several friends who are coaches and colleagues who are coaches. I don't know any coach who's not a professional. If they're a professional, they'd be willing to have an initial consultation with you. Reach out to them, say, hey, this is what I got going on. I know in my coaching sessions, I'll offer a suggestion or two and not try to push someone on a contract, because I want people to be able to take that next step, to focus, to lead, to live life to the fullest, so they do live life with no regrets.
Jones, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were an insightful guest to interview.
Well, Aaron, I like your questions. I like how you go straight to the point. And I do just, again, in closing, I would say thank you to you and all your listeners. And if you're working on writing a book, keep working on it. Get it done, because you have a message that others need to hear. And if you've already got a book out there and you feel like it's not making the impact that it should, then stop and ask yourself what you might change, and to look at those opportunities, because we need to get our messages out, the ones of positive and hope and helpful, because gosh knows our world certainly needs it.
This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.